Hello everybody, welcome back to the great state of Montana. This is the Carbine Cowboy. Hey, first of all, I'd like to give a big shout out to all of my subscribers. I want to give you all a big thumbs up. I enjoy that you subscribe to my channel, and I really thank you. Okay, today what I want to do is talk to you guys about accuracy problems with rifles with scopes. Some of the problems that people have is they'll buy a new rifle, they'll buy a new scope, they'll put it on their rifle, they'll take it out to the range, they'll shoot it, and their accuracy is dismal. Part of the problem you have is not all scope mounts and not all scopes are created equal. My father told me once, a very long time ago, rifles are like women. Not all of them are bad, just some are better than others. Well, I can attest to both of them. But anyway, back to the matter at hand. Part of the problem you have is when you're mounting a scope to a rifle. If you're using a Weaver or Piccadilly style base, or you're using Weaver style bases where you're mounting directly to the receiver, you want to make sure that when you get the scope screws down on here, not only do you get them even, but you get them tight. One thing that I always do is when I install a base for a scope, I put a little blue Loctite or fingernail polish on the threads. I tighten them down. Don't over tighten them, but you want to make sure they're tight. Because if you don't, what will happen is under a period of time, under recoil, those will vibrate loose. The other thing I do is when I attach the rings, I also make sure that whether they're the clamshell type or this type, I Loctite those too. The one thing you want to make sure you always do is when you put the base and the rings on, you make sure that you either have an Allen wrench or a screwdriver that properly fits the screws. I can't tell you how many times I've purchased a new set of rings only to find that maybe 3 out of 4 will fit the Allen wrench and the other one will either be, well, I'll say a little big. So you have to always pay attention to that. And if you find one like that, either replace it or make sure you keep mind of it, so if you're in the field and you carry a set of wrenches, you always have the ones that fit. The reason why I wanted to bring this video to you today is I knew a gentleman one time that purchased a new rifle. He put a scope on it. He took it out to the range. He was shooting that rifle, and it was randomly printing all over the target. This man became very irate. He got very upset. He was talking about throwing away the rifle, the scope, the whole 9 yards. I mean, he was very aggravated. I got to looking at the scope, and what I found is one of the screws down here, when you would grab a hold of the scope and you try to move it, it had a little play in it. So what I did was we took the rings and the scope off, retightened the mount, and put it back on and made sure everything was tightened down to fit. Now when he refired the rifle, he was surprised he was cutting half-inch groups at 100 yards with it. So those are some of the things that you guys might want to think about when you're installing a new scope. Most places today, when they install a scope on a rifle, they set their torque wrench at 28 inch-pounds. They say that is all that's required to lock down the scope to the rifle. Well, I don't use a torque wrench per se to put my scopes on. I do it by hand, but I just make sure that they're tight, and like I said, I always put the Loctite on them. Another thing that will really affect your accuracy, and I've noticed this more so on a lot of the newer guns today, and that is the barrel fit to the stock. In the old days, when we used to use a lot of wooden stocks, we would remove the action from the stock. We would sand out the barrel channel. to the point to where you could take a $1 bill and slide it from the front to the rear with no obstruction. That's what they called free floating the barrel. What that did is if you have uneven pressure points along the stock, as your barrel heats, it will cause that barrel to warp one way or the other. With your new composite stocks, you can still do that, which we still do, because you will inherently find that on some parts of this stock, it will make contact harder than it will in others. So that's something else to consider. The other thing that we have found is when you're cleaning a rifle, and if you're cleaning a bolt gun, always clean from the rear of the rifle, which means always take the bolt from the rifle, push everything towards the end of the barrel. Now on lever guns, autoloaders and such, where you have no choice but to clean from the crown end, be very careful that you are not rubbing the cleaning rod against the barrel. A lot of you guys that were in the military will understand this when I tell you that if you looked at a lot of your military rifles, the ends of the barrels were kind of egg-shaped or out of round. And what that was from is guys would just run that cleaning rod up and down the barrel. Over a period of time, it would egg-shape the end of the barrel, which will destroy your accuracy in a heartbeat. So always be mindful of that. The other thing too is make sure that when you're cleaning the weapon, you clean the barrel. I've known a lot of guys, they'll take a gun out, they'll shoot it a half a dozen times, they'll run an oily patch down the barrel, and they'll let it go at that. That's fine if you're going to take it back out sometime later and shoot it, but over a period of time, the copper will build up in the lands and grooves, and that will destroy your accuracy. One thing I always do, and this is me personally, but I use a lot of Hoppy's No. 9 bore cleaner. But one thing I do to it is I just buy some regular ammonia and I put a few drops in there of regular ammonia to the Hoppy's No. 9. And I found that it aids in cleaning a lot of the copper out of the riflings a little quicker. Or you can buy like your Sweets or Butch's Bore Shine, which does the same thing. The other thing, if you shoot a lot of lead bullets, make sure that you use a lead cleaner. Montana Extreme, which I use a lot of, they make a lead fouling Sullivan, just 4 lead bullets. I use that a lot in the 22s, a lot of rifles that I shoot lead bullets in, and pistols. Takes the lead out real fast. Just make sure you use it in a ventilated area, because it does have a little bit of aroma to it. But that will also affect your accuracy, because as the lands and grooves fill up in the barrel, the bullet doesn't get a good enough bite. And if you're using an older weapon that's had a lot of rounds put through it, the riflings may start to get a little worn, and that just destroys the accuracy also. The other thing you might want to check into if you're having a problem with accuracy is check to make sure that your screws on the bottom that hold the action to the stock are tight. I can't begin to tell you how many times these things will work loose too, and when they do, and especially on the front end, it'll cause this thing to move, or the back end, it'll do the same thing. So you want to make sure that everything is good and snug to the rifle, and that will aid in your accuracy. Some of the other things you might want to check: not all factory ammunition is made equally. Guns, they prefer things just like human beings. One ammunition will not always work accuracy-wise in another rifle. They could be the same make and model. One will shoot one fine, the other won't. So if you shoot factory ammunition, try certain brands. You'll find one that works. If you're a hand loader, pretty much the same thought. Different bullets prefer different powders, vice versa. So it's kind of a, I don't know really how to put it. It's kind of a mad science, really. But once you really find what that weapon likes, it will like it and it will shoot it and it will shoot it all day. But these are just some of the things that I thought I would bring across to you. Some of the things that I've noticed over the years. Some of you people may have noticed the same thing. But I just wanted to bring that to you because, I mean, with the price of optics these days, you know, I've seen guys just twisting on the dials of the scopes and all this and cuss and carry on because the gun wants to float and print all over the paper. It's not always the glass. It doesn't take much for one of these screws to come loose, and especially under a lot of your heavier recoiling rifles. I would say like your 7 mag and up, they have a tendency to vibrate a lot of things loose. So you always want to make sure that when you attach a piece of glass to your rifle, make sure everything is tight. And periodically, I do it myself periodically. I'll go through and check to make sure that the ring screws are tight. It only takes a second, but in the field, if you're hunting or you've got a lot of money riding on a competition, you'll understand what I mean about things going bad in the moment of truth. But anyway, I just thought I would bring that to you, and I'd like to hear some of your questions and comments. If I've neglected something in the video and you want to point that out to me, do that. I want to hear it. But from the great state of Montana, this is the Carbine Cowboy saying, enjoy your shooting, and I'll see you next time.